Shadow Slave. By Guiltythree. Chapter 1227, A Friendly Invitation. The Black Skull was a death trap, so no one would be able to escape the Nightmare Desert through its gateway. However, there was at least one other citadel in this infernal region of the Dream Realm, the Tomb of Ariel. The black pyramid that always loomed just beyond the horizon like an ominous mirage, but never grew closer no matter how far one went into the sea of white dunes. One of the main reasons why the great clans had come to Antarctica, in the first place. Now that the expeditionary forces of both clans had been wiped out and the daughters of Kisong fully withdrew from the race, Morgan decided to make one last, desperate attempt to reach the Daemon's tomb. Which was a piece of good news for Sunny and other members of the cohort. Sunny knew that reaching the pyramid was their best, and, perhaps, only, chance of getting out of the desert alive. The others understood, as well. Having a powerful saint and a princess of valor with them was a great boon. Summer Night and Morgan could make the lethal task of traversing the Nightmare Desert slightly less impossible to accomplish. There was just one problem. Without showing any emotion, Sunny stared at the reflection of Mordred through the shadows. The Prince of Nothing looked rather chilling. He was terribly wounded, his armor battered and covered in blood. Where one of his hands was supposed to be, there was now only a bloody stump. Even one of his eyes was gone, replaced by a gaping hole. He looked like a corpse. Nevertheless, there was a familiar smile on Mordred's face. Sunless. Ah, I am so glad to see you in good health. Maintaining a calm facade, Sunny furtively glanced at his companions. None of them seemed to have heard Mordred's voice. It appeared that it was being transmitted directly into his head. Maybe what Mordred was actually talking to was not Sunny, but instead Sunny's reflection. In any case, it was a little disconcerting. Great. Now I hear even more voices. Mordred lowered his bloody arm and coughed awkwardly. Oh, right. I guess you can't answer without announcing my presence to everyone. How about you nod once or twice to indicate? Sunny hesitated for a few moments, then silently reached out to the reflection with the blessing of dusk. To his surprise, it actually worked. Continuing to act as if nothing had happened, he sent a mental message to the mangled reflection. How about you get out of my head and go die someplace else? No matter what you're scheming, I'm not interested. Mordred blinked. Well, what a pleasant surprise. We can actually have a conversation. How nice. Sunny sighed. He was really quite exasperated. Why would I want to talk to you, bastard? This is all your fault. If not for your machinations, there would have been no battle. Then, I wouldn't be stuck in this damned desert. The Prince of Nothing looked at him with a smile. This is really uncalled for, Sunless. Ah, I'm a bit hurt. Sure, I might have pulled a few strings to make the battle happen, but how was I supposed to know that you would decide to participate in it on my family's side? After all, it was you who told me over and over again that you didn't want to have anything to do with the great clans. So, blaming me for everything is a little unfair. In fact, I'm the one who is supposed to be disappointed and angry. All those lies. Mordred's smile widened. But, being the forgiving and broad-minded person that I am, I'm willing to put my grievances aside. Here, I've decided. I forgive you, Sunless. No need to even mention it. Sunny felt tempted to turn his head and stare at the reflection. This lunatic. Has he completely lost his mind? He slowly exhaled. What do you want? Mordred's reflection shifted slightly, avoiding a random glance from Sir Gilead. Then, he looked at Sunny and lingered for a few moments. I see that my sister has decided to try reaching the Tomb of Ariel. I suppose you are tempted to join her. Sunny frowned slightly. Yes, I am. Why wouldn't I be tempted? The Black Skull is now in the hands of a great abomination. Thanks to a certain someone. So, the pyramid is our best bet to escape the Nightmare Desert. Mordred stared at him with a smile. Oh, but it's not. Don't listen to my sister, Sunless, she is young and inexperienced. In fact, none of you can reach the pyramid. It's impossible. That finally forced Sunny to react. Turning away to hide his face from the members of the cohort, Morgan, and Sir Gilead, he looked at the reflection with a deep scowl. Oh, yeah. How would you know? The Prince of Nothing shrugged. Simple, really. It's because I've already seen Asterion try it once and fail. So, let me ask you a question. If a sovereign failed to reach the tomb of Ariel, what makes you think that your ragtag team of Ascended can succeed? Sunny was startled. Mordred had just confessed a piece of truly shocking information. Asterion had already been to the Nightmare Desert. And it had happened while Mordred was still with him, so more than a decade ago, at least. 1,000 questions instantly appeared in his head. I don't know enough to guess who can reach the pyramid and who can't. Does it matter, though? It's not like there is a better solution. But why did Asterion want to enter the tomb of Ariel? No, wait. If even he had failed, then why did your father and Kisong still send their people into the desert? Mordred chuckled. Because Asterion doesn't have to report to them what he does. I know, but they don't. And even I don't know what his motives were. As for the pyramid being the best solution, are you sure about that? Sunny remained silent for a while, then said reluctantly, no. If what you said is true. The Prince of Nothing grinned. It is so pleasant to talk to a smart person. Let's put aside the question of my honesty, for now. Yes, the tomb of Ariel seems like a solution, but it really isn't. My sister can't help you save yourself and your companions, Sunless. Sunny looked down with a wary expression. And I suppose that you can. Mordred stared at him for a while. His grin slowly faded. Yes, I can. I'm not doing it out of kindness, either. You need my help, but I also need yours. The strength of your companions, too, I need it. The more, the merrier. If we are to escape this hell, we'll need all the strength we can get. It is fortunate that we are able to talk, really. This ruin you're in is at the very edge of where my reflection can reach. Ah, it seems that fate is on our side. He sighed, then smiled again. So, Sunless. Why don't you forget about trying to reach the tomb of Ariel with my sister, and come challenge the third nightmare with me instead? Chapter 12:28, Unattainable Mirage. Sunny had gone through many chilling trials in his tumultuous life, but the Nightmare Desert was, perhaps, the most harrowing ordeal of them all. Lost in a true death zone, pursued by a great nightmare creature, and running out of time. He saw little hope of making it out of this tribulation alive. Nevertheless, there were two paths he could take. The first one was to follow Morgan to the tomb of Ariel, and the second one was to follow Mordred into the third nightmare. Both paths were equally lethal and veiled in uncertainty, making it hard for him to choose. In the end, Sunny made the most prudent decision. He postponed making a choice by a few days. After all, there was a time limit set by Morgan in her daring attempt to reach the Black Pyramid. 4 days. If they did not arrive at the Daemon's tomb in 4 days, Summer Night was going to take her back to the waking world, leaving the rest of them behind. So, Sunny was going to put his hopes in the Princess of War, and if she failed to accomplish her goal, he would answer Mordred's invitation and follow the only remaining path into a seed of nightmare. The Prince of Nothing was not very happy with the delay, but he had no other choice except to agree with Sunny and wait patiently. He really needed the strength of Changing Star's cohort if he was to challenge a third nightmare. Especially one that he knew nothing about, and would be entering without any preparations. Masters were the best of the best among the warriors of humanity, unlike Awakened, who had no choice but to face the trials of the spell and survive them. Each master had chosen to venture into their second nightmares voluntarily. Only the strongest and most resourceful survived and ascended. And out of those strongest, hundreds and hundreds had attempted the third nightmare in the last few decades. Yet, only a few dozen humans returned, thus becoming saints. That alone spoke about how deadly the third nightmare was. Needless to say, Sunny was not very enthusiastic about venturing into the third nightmare at the ripe age of 20. Maybe if he was a titan with 7 fully saturated cores and another decade of experience behind his shoulders, he would consider it. But now, he desperately hoped that Mordred was either lying or wrong, and that Morgan would be able to lead them to the Black Pyramid. Having to make a deal with the Prince of Nothing was the worst-case scenario. Gods. How did I end up being forced to put all my hopes in these two? The Valor siblings were the last people in 2 worlds he wanted to associate with. And yet, here he was. Worse still, with each hour and every day that passed, it was starting to look more and more as if Mordred had been telling the truth. Led by Morgan and Sir Gilead, the small group of survivors was moving deeper and deeper into the desert. They were constantly assaulted by torturous heat, which sapped them of all energy, will, and desire to live. The suffocating nature of the pristine sea of dunes had only affected them physically at first, but as time went on, its cruelty started to gnaw on their minds, as well. It did not help that none of them could really sleep, gripped by the fear of the cataclysmic battle that raged across the ancient desert at night. The further into the dunes they went, the more terrifying creatures would rise from the sands to wage war on each other. The ruins they sheltered in shook and groaned, seemingly ready to collapse at any moment. There were more broken structures buried in the sand in the inner regions of the desert, but at the same time, less and less of them looked durable enough to withstand the fury of the eternal battle. At the same time, the nightmare creatures they were forced to fight during the day were becoming more and more powerful. At first, Sir Gilead alone was enough to deal with them. Later, the valiant saint would struggle to fend off the most dire abominations without the help of the Ascended. Finally, there came a time when even Summer Night became wary of their opponents. The group was forced to tread with utmost caution, lest they encounter something that neither the saint nor the masters would be able to kill. That slowed them down considerably. And slowing down allowed the gate guardian, Skinwalker, to find their trail again. They were still being pursued, and as time went on, the constant need to escape that pursuit was only growing more urgent. There were two reasons why the great abomination was getting harder and harder to avoid. The first one was that Sunny and the rest could not allow themselves to move forward as swiftly as they had before. The second was that the creature was learning. The Skinwalker had access to the memories of the corpses it possessed, and through those memories, it was quickly learning about the waking world, the awakened, about the powers they possessed, and about the way they thought. At first, it had only been able to study the memories of several dozen vessels that it had hunted down and taken in the desert, so the process was relatively slow. But the creature had most likely escaped into the waking world, as well. How many vessels of the great abomination were there in Antarctica by now? Hundreds. Thousands, millions. Sunny did not know, but he felt that every time they had to escape from the Skinwalker's pursuit, it was rapidly becoming harder and harder to shake the abomination off. Everyone was tired. Everyone was spent, battered, frightened, and slowly starting to fall into despair. The gauntlet of the nightmare desert was just too cruel, too harrowing, and too hopeless. And worst of all, despite it all, the ominous silhouette of the Black Pyramid seemed just as distant as it had been at the start of their arduous journey. Even Morgan, who had never allowed herself to show doubt or weakness before, was looking less and less indomitable with each passing day. The perfectly maintained facade of a fearless princess of the great clan was coming undone, revealing the face of a brave and ambitious, but ultimately fallible and human young woman. She was spent, battered, frightened, and desperate too. The difference was, Morgan still had a way out, while the rest of them didn't. Just like that, the fourth day arrived. Once it passed, they would have been in the desert for a full week. And emerging from an underground ruin, the members of the group shielded their eyes from the blinding sun and looked at the distant, unattainable mirage of the tomb of Ariel. Sunny's face was grim. Mordred said that it is impossible to reach the pyramid. But he is wrong. Asterion was unable to get to it, but someone else did. The Sybils. They reached it. They even went inside. So there's still a chance. Morgan's face was motionless. Her eyes were sunken and tired, but still burning with sharpness. There was no hint of being dulled in their vermilion abyss. Grimacing, she took a step forward and said hoarsely, "Come. We have not failed yet."